It's been 2 years now that I'd started Turiyo Foundation. We completed our second year in the month of September of 23. So I'm running a little late, but I thought I'll take this opportunity at the end of the year to talk to you about my learnings and our experiences over the entire year. Uh, this has been a year where we learned by doing less, and we learned a lot from failures. There were many programs that we had started with, but this year, unfortunately, I decided to jettison a few. Up first was the digital health clinic, which I'd already spoken before in the last year, which had was coming towards its end, and which we eclipsed in 22 itself. And in 23, we gave our best shot to running ahead with the artisanal foods program. We were making pickles and gohona bori, a very traditional food art form, and we decided to terminate that program as well. A lot of learnings. It's very difficult to pick a rural base to create a program in food manufacturing. Completely making things which are handmade, and then being able to market it, profitably and run the enterprise as a viable, program. Uh, Both didn't happen, and to which I will get into in more details later. But I thought let's end the year on a positive note and talk about the program that has performed extremely well for us. And that program is our intervention in education, in nursery education for children at Vidyasagar Nursery School in this village Chaudhachuli, which is situated in block Kejuri number 2, a block in the district of Purba Medinipur in West Bengal. It's about 150 kilometers from Kolkata, and those of you who have not heard of this village, Chaudhachili, could do well to Google it now. We have quite a bit of a presence in there thanks to support from media entities like BBC and the Telegraph, who have covered some of our initiatives in the past. So, to talk about our program in school, I thought that I will run through in a condensed, structured form as to what are the different legs that we have taken, on which we stand today, and what has led to our success. Hopefully, this will be of some use to those who are trying to design, programs to uplift the standards of rural education. As you guys know, the primary education standards are at an appallingly low level right now, and it deserves interventions from both private, enterprises and NGOs. I think it's beyond the ability of governments to really fix the state of education, especially in the state of West Bengal. So when we started, I started by picking the right candidate. The school that I decided to work with had a core set of values which I had really liked, and that value was that we are going to provide education at affordable rates so that no one is left behind, and we are going to ensure that we pick our teachers from the local community and we develop teachers from the local community so that it's sustainable. So the money we get from our students goes into funding the teachers, and the teachers kind of work as paid volunteers. Clearly, the compensations they would receive under this model would be not even a tenth, maybe about a 20th of what they would earn potentially if they were to get a government job. So once I had picked up, this particular school, Vidyasagar Nursery, I used to refer to it as the school with just one blackboard. The infrastructure part was easy. I decided to put in our own funds in there from Turiyo Foundation, and we wanted to build up a structure right on the plot of land that they had received as gift from one of the families almost 7 or 8 years back. But they have not been able to grow beyond a mud thatched house, a mud thatched room, I would say, a pair of rooms with one blackboard. That's how I saw the school when I first saw it, and hopefully I'll be able to show you some pictures around it. And then we ended up building up a 1.5 storied kind of a paka structure around it, and we decided to paint it, using pictures that would be appealing to the students. Used local artists to come out and help and put up this very interesting looking building right in the middle of the village. That was the easy part, right? But I soon realized that the building would not serve the purpose, right? And I had to get in the stakeholders into this game. Everyone was praising this new building which they had seen, and they were kind of applauding. But inside there was a lot of skepticism. We have just a few ladies from the local community. Are they going to be good enough teachers? Got a lot of skepticism from the local high school headmaster, who came and told me, "Oh, it looks pretty from the outside, but how is it inside?" There was a lot of deep undertones of disbelief that this program would actually succeed. We just had about 40 students at that point of time, but I decided that that was the right time to dive right in. I wrote up a constitution for this school, a core set of values, and I wrote it together with the support of of a committee. We created a school committee of people, elders who were interested and who were vested parties in developing the school from the very early days, and a few parents and a few teachers. And together we kind of decided that we must write down the core set of values that we stand for. Values such as that we don't want to just go with the toppers of the school. We want to ensure that no one is left behind. So the last boy standing in the class was as important to us as the first boy, right? We took it upon our values that we are not going to make this a profit-making enterprise, but whatever we would get in terms of our income would be funneled right back into the teachers. So if we grew, the people who would grow along with the school would be the teachers first, and their compensations would grow, right? And the perquisites would grow. So we would be able to pay for our own internet, pay for our own electricity, things which I was funding initially from the foundation. So getting the stakeholders to come in and get in to buy into this vision was very important. I created a community, created a committee, both kind of working hand in hand together, and the committee was there to defend me from untowards incidences, because there are people who are very jealous of something in a rural community, of something that's growing, and we had our fair share of problems, but the committee kind of stood behind me like a rock. So it's very important when you're getting into an intervention in education in a rural setting, you want to make sure that you've got the stakeholders with you, and you got their buy-in and you got their support. So I had a person who's now the headmaster, who's Animesh Dash, who became like my the chief mentee, and I was mentoring him all the way through, getting the support of the teachers, working with this the committee to safeguard us from the harassment that would come from the market, getting some key parents to come in and agree that we are on the right path. So all of this taken together was the essential ingredient of getting what I would call as stakeholders buy-in. The One of the tough things was asking the teachers to change. So the teachers were very used to a performance-driven culture. The whole village is there's a kind of a racket which goes on with the tuition, right? As parents don't find time to to participate with their children at home after school, they would typically dump the responsibility on tuition teachers. And tuition teachers have mushroomed. It's much like an urban phenomena that a lot of you are familiar with, but you would be appalled to know the kind of standards which are there in a village, right? So there's a whole bunch of tuition trade which is going on, right? Whose job is to push the performance of the students to get them higher marks in a class, right? And the life of these students are really terrible, which I learned by interacting with them, in the sense that they go for tuition in the morning, then they go for school, they go for tuition again in the afternoon, and in the evenings, often 2 sessions is like extremely common, and they have no life outside tuition and education at that point of time. So asking the teachers to step back from that and introduce a holistic education where they would be using methods of play, using methods of self-learning, using art and crafts, using music to kind of come in and round off the experience of a child in the very early days of education. It was extremely difficult, right? So I had to really keep on preaching to these teachers, saying that you got to adopt this, and they would in turn push back, saying, but parents don't like all this. Parents are like always looking at marks. That is one of the persons I remember, and I must quote Shubhra ma'am, from Vikram Shela, NGO who work in education. She had once taken a session with these teachers, and she brought up this very interesting example of having an elephant having like two pairs of tusks. The one there's up for show right outside, and then there's the one which the elephant uses to actually process and digest food, right, and actually eat. So she told me that you got to make sure that you keep doing some things for the show, but hidden from the outside, you start doing your own stuff, right? So if you are doing your play-based education and getting the children to interact with you, with these self-learning kits, make sure that they are taking back enough books to home, because at home, the number of books they bring back from the school is a direct measure of the level of education that is being imparted at school, right? So we use this dual technique of doing what we really want to do, but keeping it hidden from, like, flying below the radar. And when we are talking with parents, we're not like overselling this whole bit of holistic education. We keep talking about the numbers, we keep talking about the marks, we keep talking about tuition, and slowly is pushing the idea that maybe things are not happening the right way, and maybe we need to look at this method of changing the education with your support. So this is what we are trying to do, and these are the different things that we are attempting. The first attempt we made was through an intervention called the Baker's Camp, and we did a Maker's Camp exactly 2 years back, and it was a tremendous success. The children were enjoying it. We brought in artists from outside the village and from outside the district who came in, and they did a 3 day full of workshop of doing drama and theater and origami and painting with the hands and stuff like that. And the kids really loved it. But I knew that doing one workshop in a year was not going to cut it, right? How are we going to make a sustainable program? So we got the teachers involved, right, into the program, so they could in turn learn how to utilize this technique for educating the students. And slowly I found that this art and crafts was slip sliding its way into the kind of a weekly program. We decided to take a day off on Saturday. That was when the children would come into school to just play and do these kinds of things, do their music or do their dance or do art and crafts. And now I didn't need a teacher from the outside. I didn't need a coach from outside. My teachers were literally picking up the skills and then working with the students to do these pieces together. Now, on one hand, I was telling the teachers that the self-learning ability of children are extremely high. We rarely are able to comprehend their ability to self-learn. We had done a program called FALA, which is Future Arts and Learning Alternatives, run by Rohini Maiti, and we had discovered for ourselves that for slightly elder kids, like from class 4 to about 7, there was a tremendous capacity to self-learn. So let them loose on computers, let them loose on electronics, let them loose on stuff. With just minimal guidance, these kids were adept at picking up stuff and then building on top of it. So we took the same thing, we took the same principle and just pulled it, a few notches down in terms of class. And lo and behold, after about 6 or 9 months, the kind of craft work that was being produced by the students along with their teachers was simply amazing. It was nowhere near what we had started. So we were teaching them to maybe make a plane and a ship, and now they were making really, really complex pieces and getting inspired by content they were picking up from YouTube. So this whole business of designing interventions and then pulling back and seeing whether it can be picked up by the teachers and whether it can be sustainable in the long term, that was really one of the models which worked very, very, very well for us. There were 4 such interventions that have worked. So one was in art and crafts, which I spoke about. Another one on which I spoke about last year a lot, which is the nutrition program, and really bringing the teachers in, and the parents in to work on improving the quality of tiffins, which was being given out to the students. As you guys know, the bottom of the pyramid is like a fortune maker, like for a lot of FMCG companies, and packaged food and snacks have exploded in the rural market. And what's happening is that the parents, unknowingly, about the quality and the ingredients which go into making such stuff, are buying these 5 rupee pack and the 10 rupee packs and dumping it as tiffin. So one on our school grounds, and it was littered with, with plastic waste. And second, everyone was getting their, periodic episodes of stomach upsets or, vomiting and things like that, because they were kind of being stuffed with the cola and with these kinds of, adulterated snacks. I would call it adulterated, not because somebody is deliberately mixing stuff on it, but of very poor quality, right? So we designed a full-on program which we have covered, and I don't want to repeat that. But we found a lot of support, and parents were actually learning how to create healthy tiffin in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes using local ingredients, and their children were loving it. So when both parties were on the table, we prove it to the parents that, see, your kids love it. We used the teachers to design the recipes and actually documented it, to show how it is being made and how quickly it's being made. So the parents were literally out of excuse. It is something that you could make with local ingredients. It's something which doesn't cost much, doesn't take much time, and their kids love it. And then what happened is, at one opportune moment, we banned the entry of plastic snacks, right? That was early in 22, early in 22. And the learnings in 23 are that, we if you don't push it, it's not going to sustain. So I was asking and checking back a month ago that, how is the program running? Are people bringing in tiffins? So we found out there were two reasons why, the things in the quality had dropped in terms of participation. Is because as new parents were, coming in, and new students were coming in, the same intensity of the intervention had dropped. No one was really going out and telling the parents that this is a very intrinsically important part of our life in school. So the new parents, they said, we don't even know that this is, not allowed in school, and we don't know what to do. And some parents had become super smart. So what they said is, okay, if the plastic packets are banned in school, we actually observed that they were standing in front of shops, opening a tiffin box, cutting open a plastic packet, pouring it in there, throwing the plastic waste outside, and sending their kids in with those same, you know, I would call it like, the toxic tiffins, to school. So in this last parent teachers meeting, which happened just 7 or 10 days back, we said that, hey, you know what, we are going to start observing the tiffins, and we are going to push back to those who are not bringing in home cooked food. We are not going to listen to your, excuses that you don't have time. Once in a while it's fine to make an exception, but it can't be like the rule. So the learning for me is that, you can design these interventions and they take off extremely well, but if you don't keep chasing it, it is going to taper off. So there has to be a way of monitoring, and there has to be a way for you to go back into the institution and keep checking whether the programs are working on their own. So we had covered health, we had covered art and crafts, right? What was missing was physical, activity and sports, and that was absolutely not happening at all. One, because it was extremely small piece of land. It's like 0.04 acres. It's 4 decimal of land space that we had gotten, and the entire space was used up in the building already. So there's no place to play. From the on behalf of the foundation, I opened up a piece of land, which is a little far from the school, about a kilometer away, and we introduced that ground as a play space for children. This year, just last week is when we had our first sports camp this year. So we got rid of the makers camp, which we ran for the first 2 years, and this year we replaced it with the sports camp, and children really loved it. I got a trainer. His name is Simul Sharkar from the Institute of Sports Management. He volunteered to spend his time and run this camp. I got the teachers motivated. None of us had done this before. We just had the ground. So everything was conceptualized from the ground up. And when I spoke with the headmaster, I realized that, again, it's stakeholder buy-in, right? We needed the parents' support. We couldn't get them onto a ground off from the school to participate in such a program. We got the kids excited, talking to them, and asked them to talk about it in school. Then at the parent-teachers meeting, I explicitly looked for their permission and their buy-in to running this program. And they said, hey, it's not costing me anything, and it makes sense. It's fine if you guys do this. So we decided to, put up a little bit of a show. So we didn't just run the camp for 2 days. On the third day, we actually made it into an annual, fun fest, and got in the parents. We got in the local band, and there was music, and the whole place took on a very festive turn. We We invested in giving out, medals and gifts and certificates, and we even set up a whole play infrastructure. Keeping the little cricket bats and balls and football and tug of war ropes and hula hoops and jumping ropes and all kinds of stuff. I was very fortunate that a few friends and ex-colleagues decided to support this activity. So I didn't have to really fork out everything from the foundation. Of course, the foundation bears a lot of this cost of with the ancillaries and other things, but it was it was very easy. It was just one call away, and I got like four people to support, and that was all we needed. It was less than even 1 lakh of rupees that we needed to pull up this entire program, right? From decoration to food to buying equipment to buying medals and all that. It doesn't really need a lot of money, to run such interventions. Almost all my programs would have costed a max of 50,000 to 60,000. And if you're doing like just one or two interventions in a year, how much is it? It's like a little drop in a bucket compared to the kind of government money that is poured into the education system. I'm not even getting into that. So the sports intervention was extremely good, and now we are looking forward to bringing the kids in at least once a month or twice a month, and the teachers are going to be trained in the next week or so, because it's like we are in our annual vacation time. So we are going to tell the teachers how they could use some of their Saturdays to run this sports program, how they can monitor the kids. We also went into saying that, hey, these are not just a standard routine run of the game like a football match or a cricket match. There are skill sets in which you can monitor the fine and gross motor skills. You can actually check the strength of a child. You can see what's the kind of stature when he is running. Is there any kind of a motor difficulty? Are there any postural difficulties? So in our limited ability, we are telling the teachers to also serve as observation posts and bring such stuff back into the parents, when we report back on their overall progress, not just in teaching and arts and music and other things, but also in sports. The last piece of intervention, which has worked extremely well for us, again, I was fortunate to have two sponsors bringing in two computers, and we chose to go in for the AIOs, the all-in-one machines, the large desktops, which give a pretty decent real estate in terms of screens. And we got our kids in from the grades 3 and 4 to participate in these computer classes. We didn't go in with a this is the hard drive, this is the RAM, this is the ROM, this is the screen, this is the power switch, etc. And that's really what's there in computer textbooks. In case you guys have not seen a primary computer textbook, I strongly urge that you do. Even in grade 5 and 6, people are still being taught, where is the hard disk and what is a RAM and a ROM and a memory and how does it save all that. I know I had to tell the teachers that it's pretty useless to learn on this. The computer, no one needs to know what's inside the computer. You got to know how to use the computer. And the best way to introduce it to them was through games, through not just, blind games which are there, which get you addicted onto some stuff. It's more of meaningful, brain teasers, brain quizzes, skill-based games, and of course there were movies. We watched The Elephant Whisperers, which had gotten the Oscar. Rarely would a kid in a village get a chance to see a film like that. So we were able to do something like that. Bring in the kids to watch films in the computer lab, so they get more familiar. And soon I found, much to my surprise, little children, who are maybe about 5 or 6, had learned how to power on a computer and how to even power it down and how to use it responsibly. Uh, but then, I got a very interesting pushback from the headmaster saying, we are doing all this, but none of the parents really know about it. I know you kind of take pictures and you post it on social media and all that, but they don't get it that we are running a computer class. So he said, I got to bring in textbooks. So I said, okay, we'll go with the double task theory, right? So we'll do what we want to do with computers, but just to keep the parents in the loop that we are taking a effort with computer studies and all that, we are throwing in a couple of books, right? Those useless books, which is of no use to anyone, but we are putting it in the bag. So the parents get a message that there is a computer class on and there is something really good happening with my kids. Because when I get to the parent teachers meeting, I tell them, hey, when those vans keep running saying that, we are going to give you a paid computer class, now you guys go running with your kids. Now that I've got a computer systems, set up, a computer lab set up in school, where your kids are getting it for free and they're using it. Why are you not even bothered to know, right? So things like this are what's been keeping us busy. This year I also got the teachers to interact with international teachers of very high caliber who came in and spoke to them about classroom management and how easy it is for them to kind of look at it a little outside the box and start managing their students in a different way, learning about learner profiles of students, that all students are not exactly the same, and how does a teacher really identify their areas of strength versus areas of improvement. These are things that we could do in a virtual setting. I had to find somebody who was good in his her area of expertise and was also able to communicate in Bengali, which was important to get such a dense topic through to them. We did stuff like that, and that left the teachers extremely positively motivated, because when you get an external trainer to come in who has seen it all about what you're doing in your school, who has read up your manifesto, who has seen your website, and then she comes in and says that, hey, you guys are already doing a great job. We can't imagine a rural school being able to impart this level of education and using such formats which are so advanced. Granted, they're inspired from international boards and stuff like that, but you guys are implementing it. Just as an aside, that's the kind of evaluation method that we have changed. We just don't give out marks and ranks anymore, right? We actually have a docket which is maintained over an entire year where we are evaluating students, right, basis their skill sets, basis their their evolution, their behavior, their social skill, their emotional quotients. All of that is taken together and is being documented in these evaluation sheets that the teachers are filling up. Last time in a parent teachers meeting, which is now a full house, 2 years back, we used to beg people to come. I would sit there in meetings with hardly 5 or 6 people who would turn up. Now it's almost a full house, right? Whenever we set up in our hall room area, and they come up and look at these evaluation sheets, and then they are saying, "Hey, teachers, you seem to know my kids better than I know them." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, because we are spending time with them, right? We spend quality time with the kids. You guys are busy sending them to tuition, and you don't even have time to interact because in the evenings you're switching on your TV or you're looking at your mobile phone. There's hardly any interaction going on with your kids. But the teachers are doing that, and that's why we are documenting it. We don't even give it out to the parents at the end of the day, because we say that we are actually tracking the kids as they progress. So when they move from one class to another, all the old files go to the new teacher, who now has a summary of how the kid has developed over the last 2 or 3 years before he or she takes on for the next part of the journey. And we are now made it a policy that we will not release any of the internal documents of the school which is in this file till such point of time that they graduate. So interventions are all good, and 23, I made a radical departure from the way I was running the school. It was more like a social experiment. I was getting busy with some other projects than what I was doing with my NGO. So there was a valid reason for me to also pull back. But one fine day, I went to the school committee and I said that, I wish to tender my resignation from the committee because I don't really have time and I don't think I can do justice to the school anymore. But hey, the good news is that the school system is working fine. It doesn't really need me. The teachers know their stuff. The headmaster is running everything, and may not be in the best of shape, but he certainly deserves an 8 plus. He certainly deserves an A plus, the way he's running. So I think I can afford to pull back. Of course, there was a lot of hoo-ha and what's going to happen without you and all that. I said I'm not going anywhere, but I don't want to be involved with the day-to-day operations of the school. Deep inside, I just really wanted to throttle back and see how it runs. So there's been a gap of about 6 or 7 months since I stepped into the school. I came back and went into November 23, and that was when I kind of went back and had my first look at how things are running. Guess what? The marking system and the scoring system was going absolutely on the ball. The teachers were on the ball on it. Everything was being documented in the way that they had learned. Every Saturday, the Makers Camp was running. There was this mini Makers Camp happening all the time. So the teachers had learned the trick of how they can do holistic education. They were making new tools. So this the kits that I had given, and which kind of obviously the students were getting bored of, had been replaced by other things. One of the best programs that I can think of, which I would like to share with you is, the junior teachers designing something like a health express. So they used to look at their nails and their hair and their hygiene and stuff like that. And one fine day they were doing a game where they made them all go around like in a choo-choo train, right? And they were like inspecting the nails and all that. And then if they were not in the best of shape, you had to get out of the train. And then they would have a hair check, and those who were not in shape would get out of the train. So this whole health express was stopping in different stations, and then the teachers were holding the placards, and then kids were being pulled off the train. And finally, the train came down to just 4 or 5 kids, and it was a celebration that these kids, on a given day, on a random day, were looking at and were at tops in their personal hygiene. So that happened. We immediately pulled up those parents who were help driving such personal health checks at home. We decided to give away prizes at the annual ceremony for that, right? So this entire program was designed by the teachers, without my support or without my intervention. They had figured out that cracked a way to tackle a health hygiene issue, on their own. And then I asked them that who came out with this idea. They said, "Sir, it's like we were on the net and we found a video. We saw this happening in some foreign school. We couldn't really understand the language, but we could understand what was going on. So we decided to do our own." And they bought this old cardboard that cut open some courier boxes, and they wrote it with the marker pens. It's stuck it on small pieces of bamboo. Amazing work, right? But that goes on to prove that scarcity sometimes helps people evolve and innovate, right? You don't always flood them with resources and tools. When you pull back, right, having given them the inspiration, and then you leave them with a little bit of scarcity, it just works wonders, right? So that is something that I just want to tell all of you guys who would take away something from this whole piece of learning that I'm sharing, that it's not just about money, it's not about resources, it's really about team, how you play the game, at what point to do your intervention, at what point do you pull back, have you inculcated the values and the beliefs, are people kind of getting it, and the whole thing, is it getting momentum? And then finally, one last thing is that nothing happens without a good solid financial system. So the school was already into a bank account system. We had decided to put closing every month, close on the books. Otherwise, headmaster was kind of very scattered with the way he kept his money, putting them in envelopes and cash and all. We got into digital payment systems for those who could now transfer payments, even if they were working away from the village. Earlier, collecting money was getting a challenge because their parents would go off to work, being migratory laborers, and they would say, "Oh, we are going to come back after 6 months," and that's when we would pay. Now with digital payments, they could send in their payments from anywhere, and they were all used to digital payments. We were keeping the accounts in ship shape. We were making sure that the excess money was being deposited in the bank and running basically a healthy balance sheet, right? We had a budget, and all of that happening together is also what brought in a lot of credibility, right? We were trying to pay the teachers on the first, not happening every month. We were trying to get our payments from the parents on time. So all of that taken together brought about the much needed, the fiscal, discipline and the fiscal good health of the system. And, the numbers are there to show. We had started with about 40 to 50 students 3 years back, and now, we are going to touch at least 225 this year. And that's making sure that, the teachers' salaries are also jumping by at least a 10 to 15 to 20%, every year, depending on the growth. And the school is now able to run a lot of their, stuff on their own without really any support from the foundation. It's more on such programs as special interventions where the foundation is stepping in and then quickly stepping out, right, as is happening in the sports. Uh, One last thing that I would like to talk about is that, so we were doing good on art and craft, we did good on sports, we were doing good on health interventions and all of this. But I knew that if we didn't crack the academics, right, it would all come to naught. I mean, there is only so much that I can push on the belief system, but at some time, you got to get into the game and play the game as well. So here in our village, when kids graduate from the nursery from grade 4, they're all going to the high school. And while the local kids are assured a seat, the kids who come from a little far away, they're not assured a seat. So there is an admissions test. And people who get into it, the first list, as they call it, the merit list, That's really the big deal. And then people are always looking at who are the toppers, who came in the first 10. And this year, for the first time, we got five of those slots. So five students from Vidyasagar Nursery made it to the top 10 of the admissions test at Holudbury High School, and that was absolutely nailed it. The topper of the admissions test also was came from our school. So suddenly all this buzz which used to go around that they do all this fancy stuff because they have the money to spend on such programs, and that's why they got all these computers and all that. But look at the state of education, and what is their state of in terms of the academic performance, right? Where is their anchors? So we delivered five, in the top 10, and that kind of put a lid on that gossip, I think, forever, now that we've got our topper. How did we make this happen? We made this happen because we put in a lot of effort in the last 3 months, right? I inspired the teachers initially that, you need to step up and go beyond your call of duty and deliver these kids. So they decided to participate on the weekends and run free tuitions, free special classes. I funded another teacher who would come in from the outside and augment the effort. So keeping with our principle, we got all 16 students in grade 4 to get into the first list. So it was like no one was left out. We were not just looking at the ones who are gifted, we were looking at everyone together. That was one. And the second thing was we got five out of the top 10, right? We went around tom-tomming it. We said that now you guys used to figure whether we are actually taking care of the education. So that is happening. So education, rank plus sports, rank plus food, rank plus music, rank plus craft is the narrative that is taking hold right now. And I don't have a measure on the brand value of the school, but I'm being assured by the headmaster that there are kids come wanting to join the school now from as far away as like a 5-7 kilometers away. Coming into a rural nursery school from 7 kilometers away is an unheard of phenomena deep inside a setting. We are not like in a proper motorized road setting. We are deep inside in a rural village. Like you cannot go any more rural than where Chaudhachule is. And we are getting parents to come into a school. So there's so much of aspiration in terms of parents to take their kids to getting a proper pre-primary and primary education care. So I think overall I feel very good to be in a place with Vidyasagar Nursery right now where we've got all the basic building blocks. I know we need to solve for improving and enhancing our infrastructure, but honestly, I'm not too bothered about it. I've also realized that there is a certain a way in which innovation can get absorbed. So a lot of stuff that I had pulled in, like biometric teachers attendance and all of those stuffs lie unused, which is fine. I kind of realized that you don't need so much of tech upfront, right? The Alexa, which was out there, is not used so much. It's okay that it's not being used so much. Everything can't be digested and processed. The takeaway for me is this: bring in just one or two like major interventions and then pull back. So this year, right now, our focus is on sports. The next thing that we want to do in 24 is language, because I figured that that's really an aspiration. The ability to talk in English, the ability to talk in our national language, which is Hindi, or ability to talk in any other language. Like language, there should not be any borders, in terms of language. That is going to be one of our initiatives. And I think that will be very aspirational. If I can make the kids go up on stage and just impromptu talk very fluently in English, and if the teachers are also being able to converse in English, I think that will be a game changer. And I look forward to trying that in 2024 and report back at it at the end of next year. So I have covered pretty much everything that I wanted to about the school. I feel good that it's running, and if this is of any use and you would like to borrow anything from us in terms of our assessment procedure or our constitution or the way we designed our sports program, the way we designed our health program, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to share it. There's no cost for sharing knowledge, so that everybody can take a shot at it. I know there's a lot of people out there in the US and in Europe and others who want to give back to India, who want to come in and solve the problem of education. Here is your opportunity. Pick a school, pick a place, anything of your liking, and just run a program like this, right? Even if these are small little dots compared to the millions of children who need attention, but these little dots will all kind of connect together someday and will evolve into a greater common good, I feel, for education in Bengal and in India. Thank you.